Welcome to the EMS Underground. I am Charles McFall. Riding along with me today is Tom Camplain. This is where you say hey for the audio versions. And is it Chief? Is it Fire Chief?
Well, I'm the Director of Emergency Services for Habersham County.
There you go. Director of Emergency Services, Chad Black, here with us today. And we're going to be talking about GEMSA, the Georgia EMS Association, and a bunch of other different things. But Tom, you've been talking with him all morning. Yeah. Why don't you get it warmed up and kicked off here?
Well, one reason why I wanted Chad to come in and talk to us because Chad is the chairman of GEMSA, the Georgia EMS Association, that represents all the EMTs, paramedics, advanced EMTs, cardiac techs, intermediate EMTs. And you even reach out, include some nurses in there too, right? They can join?
They can for some of the ones that transport services within hospitals.
Right.
You know, children's comes to mind right off the bat.
Yeah, and the helicopters.
And the helicopter services, absolutely.
And they do a lot of things for us. And I don't think the average EMS provider out there understands what goes on.
Absolutely right. I've been a paramedic for 20 years, didn't really know about it. So my first question is, what is GEMSA?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today and here on behalf of GEMSA. We have made a conscious effort to get out, meet with organizations like you, region council meetings, and let people know what GEMSA does, a lot of good things we've got going on. This has been a recruitment effort we've been working on the last 2 years. We got a lot of good things by being a member of our organization. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. It's like you said, we represent the EMS industry as a whole in Georgia. A lot of things that we do is, you know, you said a minute ago we were talking about legislative. There's things that came up this past year, 3 bills that we had to be down there almost every day on top of. Mm-hmm. Some years we don't have anything. I don't anticipate that happening again this year, but we also work very closely with the Trauma Commission. Mm-hmm. You know, the super speeder fees, that money goes to trauma. We get about $22 or $23 million a year is generated by
my
that.
Daughter contributed to.
Well, we hope she slows down, but we appreciate the contribution. Out of that money, EMS gets 20% that we do the equipment grants with. We do classes all over the state. So GEMSA organizes those classes, hundreds, from extrication to PHTLS to EMR programs. We're looking at possibly some EMTB programs online. I don't know. That is something, we're not looking at that. That is something the Trauma Commission and EMS subcommittee is looking at. GEMSA just takes what the subcommittee does and recommends and gets approved, and then puts the classes on, coordinates that, develops the scope of work and things like that.
Oh.
So you help put on like continuing education classes.
Correct.
Especially in those rural underserviced areas.
Rural underserviced, big time. That may be hours from either a private EMS institution like yours or a technical college.
And in reality, too, when you look at it, people don't think about it, but when they're going on vacation, they're driving through these areas.
Yeah.
No, we know when below Macon has been and probably continues to be, if you're in a serious accident, your chances of surviving is higher than the national average on, how many fatalities per 1,000 or 100,000 people there are in those areas. And we continually try to find ways. What can we do for that EMS funding? We bought equipment and we put classes out, but now we're looking at what do we do better? Mm-hmm. What is the next phase? And I'll talk about something we're doing up in Region 2 that we possibly are going to do with whole blood in the field. So
yeah, I saw that's a new
possibility.
There's a pilot starting.
Not a pilot. We're working on the pilot. We'll present to the state EMS medical directors in September. Mm-hmm. If they approve the pilot project, then we will start it. Now, the discussion is it a 6-month, 12-month? We're trying to figure those components out and logistics. But, that in our area, it will help. We know it saves lives. We've worked with San Antonio, who has done this. They've got great data. But South Georgia, There's some areas, if the helicopters are not able to fly, you're easily an hour and a half or longer to the trauma
Right.
center.
And there's only so many helicopters.
And there's only so many help, but a day like today, they can't fly. So if you got to ground that patient, whole blood can make a difference. Big difference. I think that's the next step we take. And not everybody needs it, not every community. But the rural communities, one unit on a supervisor's vehicle can make a drastic difference. We've
Buy some
already
time.
seen it in our area. The helicopters have been carrying plasma for a couple of years now, and we've had some great success stories that I don't think those patients would have survived if they hadn't have gotten that blood in the field.
Wow. I know when I
Or
was in
blood
the Army,
product.
we carried, plasma in the Army.
And it worked. I
Yep.
mean, a lot of things, we do in EMS, we get from successful on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So we also, for GEMSA, we do our 2 conferences. We do the Educators Conference, Providers and Educators Conference every year in Savannah. Our enrollment already, we're looking at probably almost hitting 600 people this year for the Savannah Conference. Some great speakers. And then in the spring, we do our EMS Leadership Conference at Lake Lanier Islands. That's for about 200 of the leaders, whether it's, lieutenant, captain, director, fire chiefs, whoever that come. And that's been a very successful. I think this will be our 4th year of doing that, starting it back again.
Right.
So
Yeah, I
we've
know
really
he
got
was there for a
very
while.
robust educational offerings. I was just 2 weeks ago, myself and Kim were in Orlando at the Pinnacle Conference, a very good conference put on by Fitch and Associates. But they had 400 people there, and this was EMS leaders from across the nation. But here we are in Georgia. We've got almost 600 coming to our conference. So that made me feel good.
Yeah.
We've
Do
built
they
it
do the
back up.
Changes Conference anymore?
We do not. We replaced it. Back before I became a board member. I don't know, 5.5 years ago, 6. Changes was always in Augusta.
Right.
And they made a determination to move it more central, and they moved it to Cobb County at the Galleria. And I think there was a lot of factors there. It was not successful in Atlanta, but it was right about the time the downturn in the economy. You know as well as I do, organizations that have a training budget, when a
that was
downturn
the
comes,
first
that's
ones
one of the
cut.
first things cut. So I think there was other factors that went into that. But then it was, after I got on the board, we talked, and we just were not getting went back to Augusta, and they've got a great convention center in Augusta. The problem was, though, is the vendors hall was a long walk. It was a great vendors hall. You could bring all the trucks inside, ambulances, all the vendors could be in there together, but it was such a distance from where the actual conference was, walking down hallways and steps. And our vendors were not happy, said they didn't get a lot of foot traffic. And you know as well as I do, the
That's-
vendors have to see people. That's why they're there. So, and we've got to have the vendors to put these conferences on.
Or either they'll be outrageously expensive.
So we looked at things. There used to be the old leadership. If you remember years and years ago, they had up at Unicoi, up in White County, where I'm from. So we decided let's try the leadership class again. So that kind of replaced the Changes Conference, and it's been very successful. We would like to have another location where we could have more people, but the room and where we're at only will host about 200. But nobody wants to move it from Lake Lanier Islands. All the people, we want to come here. They bring their families. They get to do things. It's in the spring. This year was good. Last year was very cold. So it's hit or miss during that.
Georgia.
But,
Good old Georgia.
so
That's the only time you'll hear him say that, by the way. He's an Alabama man.
Roll Tide.
Oh, go dogs.
Well, have you thought about expanding into digital, doing online memberships where you can stream it and they can watch?
We're looking at our website, and we've got a lot of things going on where it's easier to go on and be a member. We've had to update that. Of course, you know better than I do. That comes with a cost, so we've got to look at the funding. But we're wanting to try to work and offer continuing education online. I'm still, like we talked about, I'm still a firm believer you need to go to classes and do some things, go to conferences and be there. But there's things that you can do online that still is beneficial, and that's the next component we want to look at with GEMSA, is offering online education and what we can do. It's a rainy day at the station. Hey, let's get on the GEMSA site, and we can, for a membership, it's free education. Maybe they get an hour CEU and whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, today it's a digital world, and people live on their phones, and I know personally I've never been to in EMS, I've never been to a conference. I've been to other work conferences. I went to a safety one. I worked for Georgia Pacific as their safety officer and went to some safety conference. And it was mind-numbing. It was just hard to stay awake. You get the credit hours, but then you stayed for the vendor floor for the free swag, and then the vendors all had parties at night that you went to. And that was what the whole conference was.
It is, and that's one of the things we try to focus on. Kim has been going for years to other conferences, and she's actually a part of a national consortium of EMS executive directors.
Okay.
And a lot of our speakers that we've gotten, Kim has went to, part of what we did going to Orlando was, let's go listen if there's a real good dynamic speaker. Let's see if they want to come to our conference. So you go listen to them instead of just looking at a resume online.
Right. Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate. Now, you're always, when you get as large as this organization is and you've got that many speakers coming in, some of the top, even I was laughing last 2 weeks ago at Pinnacle, there's just some topics when it comes to EMS reimbursement, it's hard to make it interesting to sit through for an hour.
Yeah.
But we've got to have it, and there's some things that just, I don't care what you do and what we do, it's not going to be interesting. It's not the trauma patient and things like that out there. So we work very hard, and we really look at the reviews and surveys post-conference to see, engage the speakers, and if we get a really bad review overall, then we don't ask that speaker to come back.
And I'll be honest with you, in the past, because I used to religiously go to the conferences, and this is before your time and stuff, but it got pretty bad. And you probably know what I'm talking about.
No, it does. And not that I've done anything different. This has been the organization growing and going to other conferences, and it's kind of like you got to invest in something to get a return on your investment.
I think what it was the same speakers every year.
Right. Now we've got a couple we bring back every year.
Almost the same topic, and that's where I was saying it wasn't that they were bad. It was just, well, I'm going to listen to this EKG lecture again.
Right. Correct.
Or I'm going to listen to it again. It was a good lecture. It was done good. It's just that I had listened to it already. I wanted something different.
Correct.
And I think that variety is very important.
It is, and not that we're going to always make everybody happy. I mean, we get some speakers.
Sure.
Yes, we get some speakers that are just absolutely 98% of just got to have. Scotty Bolliger. I don't know if you've seen Scotty. Scotty was one of the developers or inventors, part of the EasyIO, sold it. He has a lab that he works for out in Texas, and he comes in and he does live cadaver labs where the people back there are doing things, but he's very dynamic. You do have to worry sometimes what Scotty may say, but a lot of people
that
love
makes
it.
For the best lectures right
That's
there.
right. People love it, but you've always got a few that I didn't like his comments. You got to sort through that.
You're an EMS.
Did you stay
got to
awake?
have a little thicker skin.
They do stay awake. We usually put him on right after lunch.
There you
go.
Yeah.
'Cause those are the hard ones. Especially, do you still get the free lunch on the first day?
You have lunch 2 days,
Oh, it's
breakfast,
2 days.
everything.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, after that big old chicken, that good southern lunch down
You would
there.
be shocked at where we are, what it costs per person just for the food.
Yeah,
and when you've got 500 or 600.
Yeah.
And it's good food.
Coffee in the mornings and stuff, just for a gallon of coffee, you would be stunned. It's all unionized there, and it's all.
I've worked in the hotel business doing AV, and I know they tend to really push that price way up beyond what it's supposed to be.
No, absolutely. But you got to do what you got to do. When you're there, you can't bring it in. But we got a lot of good things going on. I know I'm the requirements for you to be an EMS instructor is changing. So all the continuing ed hours and stuff I was explaining the other day, you as the director, you may or may not have to have your EMS instructor moving forward. Is that correct from what I'm hearing in the state?
I haven't heard that yet, but I heard that they're changing the levels and it's going to be more fluid. Because my complaint is I've worked hard for my level 3, and because I haven't taught any paramedic courses, because I feel like I know some, and this is the thing, regions are kind of done differently, operated differently.
Correct.
Here in our region, pretty much if you're going to do a paramedic refresher class, you had to be a level 3 instructor. which I agree with. I
Yeah.
mean, you're doing a
No,
paramedic class
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
stuff, and I do a lot of paramedic refreshers. So I'm like, just because I'm not teaching a entry level paramedic class doesn't mean I'm not teaching paramedic continuing education. But they were saying, well, that's not going to stop you from doing that. It's just going to be different. And if you want to get your level 3 back, it's an easy thing to do if you start teaching. And I'm like, okay, just as long as I'm able to teach, I'm fine.
One of the things we're very proud of, and it may have changed. I know as of last year it was still this way. Now another state may have changed some things, but our Provider and Educators Conference, as of last year, was still the only conference in the United States, EMS conference, that an educator could go to those 3 days, or even come to the pre-con classes before, but could come to that conference and get all of your continuing education hours in one place. No other state does that. They have to still go to other places. So we really try to make sure we get the components there and meet what you need as an educator.
That's good.
So
That's good.
Because that can be hard sometimes, depending on where you're at. I do wish that the state would change the requirements for being an educator. I think that an instructor, before you're let loose, there should be a journeyman process because it's so easy. I know there for a little while, you had people graduating paramedic school, and at the same time when they got their paramedic license, they were getting their level 3 instructor license within the same week.
right.
And if you're listening and you were one of those, I'm sorry, I just don't agree with
They
it.
need. I'm with you. That's just like
Like, how are
the
you
flight
gonna,
services have a requirement: 3 years in a high volume service, or 3 years as a nurse in an ICU, CCU with some ER experience.
right?
And there's a reason for that. Just like
Experience.
educators,
Yeah.
It's like, how can you teach a paramedic to work a cardiac arrest if you've never actually worked one?
by knowing a book.
Yeah, by just
The
a book.
experience means there. I agree with you. There needs to be some criteria that you got
That's
to work
why
in the
here
field
we have
for a
all
while.
these scenario type things, and a lot of times whenever we're teaching, when I've got somebody, an instructor with less experience versus somebody with more experience, it's two totally different. Even though it's the same scenario, it's two totally different outcomes because the more experienced instructor throws more at them and stuff like that.
Correct.
And so yeah, I know there's changes coming. I know I mean EJ and them stalls we don't have anything to worry about because we're already doing everything that they're going to want.
And I don't know exactly what somebody was just talking to me this past weekend or end of the week last week, and I was doing another video for something last week, Northeast Georgia Medical Center, and one of the EMT paramedic instructors works there full time was telling me about it. So it's going to be interesting to see what those changes are.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the open. When they open it up to the public, I'll be there. But yeah, we'll probably all be there just to make sure. But then tell us about, because I know there's a huge thing that the association is doing, which is for retirements. Because traditionally, the fire department and law enforcement agencies, they have a retirement fund. It doesn't matter what department
Outside
you work
their
for.
agency, different, correct.
And it so it doesn't
It just
matter.
follows
if
them to their career.
Wherever
It
they
does.
go, they participate in it. They get a retirement because. How many, let me ask you this. How many, and you can tell me it's none of my business, but roughly, how many EMS jobs have you had?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I retired from Hall County almost 32 years. I'm at Habersham now, and I'd been up there 28 years part-time. But I worked for, when I was very, very young in it, there was a few private services come up just helping them out. That was in Gainesville. I knew the owners and worked a little bit for that. And then when Rural Metro took over North Fulton, my old partner at Hall County was a manager with them, called and said, I need some help down here. And I said, I can't help you. I'm Hall County full-time. I was flying at that time. And I was also still working Habersham part-time. He goes, we're $2,000 sign-on bonus. I got to have experienced people. I went to North Fulton, helped out about a year, maybe one day a month. But that wasn't for me. So
that sounds like the average 5 to 8 different positions you've worked
places,
in.
yeah, but I mean, I stayed full time with the one retired, and now I've got over 30 years between part full time with Habersham. So, and I had 16 years with Air Medical. So, mainly 3, but it's what you do, and that's a whole other thing. There is the fatigue issue. That's another huge issue that we're going to have to tackle, or if we don't, somebody's going to do it for us.
Well, I know whenever you sit down and you look at most EMS providers, and I know you know them, Charles knows them, I know them, where you've got this guy's here for 3 years, 4 years, they're not getting any pay raises, and then another service pops up and offers $1 more an hour. What
Or
do
less.
they do?
Yeah.
Then they move. And then you're there for a little while, somebody else offers more or a
you-
different position, you move. But every time you move, you lose your retirement.
That's exactly right. You're probably not vested. And you said it, the State Firefighters Pension Fund, which I was a member of, one of the best solid retirements in the nation as far as assets to liabilities. So for 20 plus years, people way before me in this organization have been trying to find a way to make an EMS retirement.
Right.
And what we were focusing on, and I say we, but was how can the state, what can we do, legislate it, because that was done for the firefighters' pension. The problem would have been if we would have went through the state and it would have been any type of state funds, you would have had to make a choice. Am I going to be in the firefighters' pension or this EMS pension? So
this will allow you to do both?
it will.
So you can have a fire department.
You could actually have fire department, PAOB, if you're able to have both of those, and I'm not 100% sure on that. And then you could have the EMS retirement. And the way we've set it up, we structured it like the firefighter's pension. We're estimating dues are going to be $25 a month. Now, the actuaries, till we get people numbers in, it's hard to completely
Right.
figure that. But roughly $300 a year. You'd be vested after the same amount of time. Fire pension, you would draw at 25 and 55, full retirement. For the firefighter's pension, to show an example of that, in the first 8 or 9 months, you would get back every dime you put in it. After that, it's free money. So who would not
Right.
be in something like that?
How long would somebody have to contribute?
Well, again, you would contribute your full 25 years if you stayed.
Okay.
Anything over 20 will be added benefit. How much, I don't know again till we actually get the numbers up before we can start this. Now, I've been asked, is there a buyback like there is in the fireman's pension? If you've been say you've been a fireman 15 years and you opted to not get the pension and now you decide you want to, I think there's an option, but there's something to buy back. Right now, we don't have anything to buy back because there's not an established pension with any money in it. Now, one of the things we're doing, two things we're doing. One is we're trying to set up some meetings with some large corporations that are, some of them are headquartered here in Georgia, some are not, but they are part of the public safety family with what they do for us. If we could get some of these major corporations to give some seed money, and $250,000 each, 3 or 4 of them,
Right.
then our 2 companies that are working with us for this retirement have said, then there's a possibility some of us, I don't know if me and you, but there's a possibility you could do a buyback. I was just looking at my years in service if I could buy back, and again, that's still to be determined, but it was right at $11,000. Well, if I could buy that back and say I completely retire out of this in 2 or 3 years or whenever it is, I get every bit of that money back in the first year plus some.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Now, the other benefits to that, well, let me back up. At Pinnacle last week, myself and Kim, our executive director, we were having breakfast, and we're always talking about what, we got to move this stuff. What can we do to improve here, here, and here? And I don't remember the conversation, but I had met with some other state EMS agencies like ours at Pinnacle, which is a good, again, and I told her, I said, Kim, let's start every year, reach out to our partners, in the Southeast. And let's start meeting 2 days a year or every other year just to we'll bring them to our state. We'll go to one of theirs. But let's see what they're doing, what we're doing, and we can learn from each other. And then I said, wait a minute. What if we could get them in? I bet they'd be interested in our retirement if they don't have one either. So in doing that, I sit down on the sofa, karma's good, and I'm sitting down, and this guy starts talking to me, and he's part of the Louisiana EMS Association. So as I'm talking about this, he goes, wait a minute, our director's here, she needs to hear this. Well, they're going to probably fly in the next 6 weeks to 2 months to Georgia. They want to be part of this. So I said, why can't we involve multiple states?
Right.
So I called the company and asked Kirby, who's our representative, and he said, yeah, why couldn't we? So if we could do that and have 20 or 30, if we had 30,000 people, $25 a piece, I think that's about $9 million a year going into the fund. So you can have it with, as long as you're licensed. You know, we've still got some things set up, but of course you got to be active. Now there's a little bit over 20,000 active EMTs and paramedics in Georgia. How many of those are truly active in EMS? I don't know.
Right.
Whether it's on the education or in the field. You also have to be a member of GEMSA. This is a recruiting tool for all organizations, and we're the one doing it. So
Why
I
not?
think it's fair. You got to be a member of this
That's
organization.
$25 a year, right?
$25 a
$15
year.
for
If it's an
your-
organization puts them in, it's 15. We got a lot. We've got a lot of organizations that have enrolled their members. Even a large department like Cobb County is getting ready. That's almost, I think, 600, 700 members. You're talking. It's money, but it's very minimal for what that can do.
Right.
But regardless, if you're work for a private EMS educational department, a private EMS agency, a government, hospital-based, you're a member of GEMS and you're in good standing with the state, you can be a member of this and have a retirement.
Now, Chad, beyond retirement and continuing education, does GEMS have any kind of influence on the state, or you the group that helped lobby for EMS? I mean, what other benefits are
Well,
there?
we do. We're there watching after the best. There was 3 bills introduced specific to EMS this year that our organization as a whole and our organization as a board and members felt was not in the best interest of EMS and the best interest of the public we serve. So we have a lobbyist, and we worked with other organizations, and I spent way too much time at the Capitol this year. It was not fun. It's not a place that I want to go to a lot. But our legislators were very supportive, and none of those bills even made it out for a vote.
So what was the heart of what was wrong with the bills? What was not in the best interest?
Well, there was 3 different ones. One that we worked hard on all of them. 2 of them never even made it out. I don't believe out of the one chamber where it originated. But one did, I believe. No, I don't even know if it made it for a vote. It didn't make crossover day. This was about zoning, and we know there's a lot of issues with zoning. And I want to say, the State Office of EMS and Trauma and MSAC, they've had a committee that one of my employees was on, and a lot of other well-known EMS people in the state, both from a government level to private enterprise EMS, has been working on. We know zoning needs to be looked at, and I don't know if cleanup is the right word, but to make it to better understand and have a algorithm for how those work. Also, and the big thing for that is I sit on the EMS Region Council. We've never had a zoning issue in Region 2 where I'm from that I'm aware of. So I went to some of these meetings because in case we ever do, I wanted to be educated on it. I've never been through a zoning process. But the 2 or 3 different places I went, everybody was, I'm not sure they were doing it the exact same way. So the state is getting a template. We're working on things. There's also with the ACCG, there was a group that I was a part of. They asked to meet, that they'll be doing some recommendations with the state on rules and changing some things, changing some names, looking at zoning, and again, having an algorithm that you go by that they've done a very good job with. And is it perfect? Is any legislation perfect?
Yeah, no process is going to be perfect.
But, you know, there's a group that has been out now for the last year and a half that's been very vocal on EMS in a negative light. A lot of things on TV. I just got another, I don't know if it was a podcast sent to me this weekend where they were focusing on a private provider that has a 911 zone. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has done a lot of articles. They've actually reached out and asked for a meeting. I've either got a meeting with them for an interview Friday or Monday one. But this is the first that the EMS Association has been asked to give our side.
And you're talking about the Transparency Project.
Yes, sir.
Now, on the surface, I am all with it. I've come up 22 years in the industry, and I've seen a lot of closed-door transactions. And even now, as we see, one of the reasons we do this show is the public has no idea really what EMS is about.
No, they don't. And this is what I believe. I don't know what is going on in a lot of these region councils. Again, we've not been through it where I'm exposed to.
Sure.
But I think some of the issues have been as some things that's been done that was not right, whether it's Robert's Rules of Order or open meetings. I don't believe it was done intentionally. I believe it was done not knowing. Another reason, one of the processes of this new change is if you become a region council member, there's some education you're going to have to go through, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Sure.
You get put on a council and you don't know about zoning, and boom, it happens. You know, you're kind of, and there's going to be a process that all councils hopefully go through the same thing versus one doing it one way and one the other. So I don't think anybody, that's my opinion.
Sure.
I don't think anybody did intentionally wrong. If they violated an open meeting request or did something, I think they were doing it not realizing.
Well, even just beyond that, it's so hard to even get universal run numbers, like 911 run numbers, which go to the state. You know, it's
when you say universal, what do you mean? Because
across the state. I mean, I'm not picking on one service. I'm saying I need you report this to the state, but if I go,
here's the problem with that, and this caught me because of one of these. Now, there was a article came out a year ago about response times. There is no way to have a
no, I said
response
exactly,
time.
No, right.
If I'm in, and I'll use Dunwoody, that's a hot topic right now. But
Mm-hmm.
if I'm
We
in
hit that.
Dunwoody and I have a call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm going to Northside or Children's
Mm-hmm.
there, I might can get there in 20 minutes and back. May not. Traffic's horrible.
Yeah.
But if I got to transport to Emory on the other side of 285, that could be a 2-hour trip to get over there and back.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm out of my zone. South Fulton,
Unavailable to run a call.
South Fulton, their
Yeah.
transports from South Fulton back into Atlanta can take longer than me and Habersham going to Gainesville 29 miles because they could be out of their zone 2 hours. What's the wall time? They're waiting at the hospitals. Again, that's
No,
an
yeah.
issue we don't have. You can't. You got to factor into your community what is the appropriate response times. You can.
No, yeah, I get that,
In
but
8 minutes, just it.
But
No,
here's the thing: they were talking about.
but reporting those numbers.
Well, but here's the thing: you're talking about. I've got a very robust community paramedicine program, so
Okay.
their times, run numbers, they had their own run numbers. But what I didn't realize till that report came out, probably you're referring to, when I pulled my response times and I went, "Oh my gosh, I'm as bad." I had not separated my community paramedicine group, maybe in the north end of the county, and they say, "Give me a run number. We're en route to 123 ABC Street." Well, that could be 45 minutes to get to the other side of the county or 30.
Sure.
That went into my response time, so we had to take and clean up over 1,000 community paramedicine, and I've got them separated now in a module made for community paramedicine. Much improvement. But again, you got to realize they talk about. And I'm sure it does happen, but each county is up to what they want in their contract for what they want for their citizens, and what you're going to pay for that level of response. But one call in particular that was very close to here, a tragedy. A person passed away from an allergic reaction. They called for an ambulance. It wasn't available. That community has had really no increase in population, is my understanding, for 20 years. They've had 2 ambulances serving that community. Both of those ambulances got a 911 call 15, 20 minutes prior to this horrible incident happening, and another county had to respond. That happens every day in Georgia. It happens every day where I'm from. I run out of ambulances. We've got a 5th 24-hour truck approved this year because we run out of ambulances almost every day, and we rely on those neighboring communities. But we do discharges, and not a lot,
Right.
but we do those patient transfers out of the hospital because that puts about $2.2 million back into Habersham County's coffers to help pay for EMS. And I know people want to say you can't put life below dollars. I absolutely agree with that. But there is a financial side to each community. What do you want? We can fund enough ambulances to where we guarantee there's going to be one available. But there's a lot of ambulances going to sit there and not run a call.
Well, the thing is, that comment you just said, you can't put life above or
Life,
dollars.
you can't put life below dollars or dollars
Right.
above life.
But you got to pay for it. You cannot, as a city councilman, county commissioner, legislator, citizen, you cannot be sitting around expecting, I want these ambulances for free, because it doesn't happen. It's not free.
No, it's
And-
very expensive.
And it's not fair to put somebody in some type of indentured servitude to sit there for nothing, and they have families to support and stuff. So, I've said this in DeKalb about the DeKalb County issue and the South Fulton County issue. People are whining and complaining about response times. I'm like, and they keep pointing the fingers at the services. No, properly fund your system, and you will get what you want.
But the other portion, and see, we have asked. I've emailed back months ago, last year actually. I went on this group's either website or social media website, I believe. And I gave them who I was, my phone number, my email. Please, we'd like to meet.
And you did it on social media too, because I've seen it there.
Correct. They did reply back to me on an issue you saw a couple of months ago where they had this letter they had sent me, or this response, I'm assuming on their social media, but I don't monitor that, so I had not seen it. But they did finally meet a legislator that helped them sponsor some legislation. Their lobbyist met with an EMS director in South Georgia, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So that was the first meeting. They've asked him to set something up with us. I just talked to him this morning, and they still hadn't reached back out to him to set anything up. They told him they had reached out to me and our lobbyist, and we refused to meet with them. And one of two things, either that's not factual or I missed an email or phone call, however they reached out. But we would love to meet with them. Going on and putting all these articles about people dying, and I'm not saying that didn't happen. I don't know.
Sure.
I do know the facts of the other one, but they used a call that they didn't tell all the information.
And people do that. I mean, Dunwoody did that to try to get their own service.
Well, Dunwoody's another case.
Yeah.
You take the DeKalb County Fire, they're talking, and I don't remember the exact for response times for ambulances. What they didn't tell is DeKalb County had a fire truck or quick response vehicle with a paramedic on scene, which is getting ALS to the scene quick.
I know.
If you're going to do a story and you're going to use information, let's put it all out there and let's take the true facts versus
the
I don't
fake
want
news.
Well, that or an agenda for, and we don't need to there are things we need to legislate, but it appears right now, and I hope we can change that through sitting down and having conversation. We want the same thing.
Yeah.
We want ethics in region councils and on doing things. But to go and put this, the venue of going through the local media, television, papers, a video that I got over the weekend of one of the same services, 911, and that an ambulance was not available for a child having a seizure, I believe it was. They're scared. The public. They're trying to scare the public that EMS as a whole. I take it very personally. A black eye. EMS across Georgia is not like that as a whole.
Right.
I'm not saying there are some things that need to be improved. We know that, but don't take and throw the baby out with the bathwater and try to make everybody think that people are dying because that's not the case as a whole.
But back to, part of the legislature that I was reading, I don't know if it's the same bill or where it died, but it was, one of the things is just everything's, you see it, everything is open, and, meetings like, I get the notification for Region 3 meetings because I'm a registered EMT in the Region 3 area, and I've gone to them. And, we have companies like Grady went into South Fulton and promised certain run times. I sat in that meeting and watched Moyer stand up and say, well, they promised 9. We're hitting 18 minutes, and we're working. I'm paraphrasing, but basically,
correct.
And we're working on it. And he sat down. Nobody around that table asked a question about what are you doing? Why is it not here? How are you improving?
Well,
what are your actual numbers? And they're not releasing them. And I couldn't just raise my hand in the audience because it was the Robert's rule. I wasn't on there.
And I don't know about that, but I know if I'm going into it, if I was doing that through that RFP and going into an area, unless I can get factual information and data from the prior service or the current one that's there, what I give you that we can respond in is only an estimate because I don't know. I've not been there.
Sure.
If I don't have good information, and then another component people don't take into, when you get in the Fulton County, metropolitan Atlanta area, there's a delay in the dispatch from the time it goes to one PSAP. They have to transfer it, whether it's Grady or Metro or whoever that may be. There's a delay there. How quick is that call processed? And I know some people that worked in that South Fulton area that would say they would be sitting there, their ambulance crews, and the engine would be dispatched to a call, and 4 or 5 minutes later, that ambulance dispatched to the same location.
Yeah, that's one slightly missed is dispatch processes.
See, and that's it. Let's look at everything and make sure what can we do to make it all better versus focusing it on, again, the private services. They have every right, and there's some very good private services that run EMS in Georgia.
There are.
We need them. They do a very good job in the 911 zones. Been there a long time. Do they have issues? I'm sure they do. But
Everybody does,
they do.
though.
I've got issues with mine, and I'm government funded.
Yeah.
But the only way to get better is to come as a group, collaborate on the issues. We may not agree with everything, but if we can make it better, then okay.
But somewhere in the middle, though.
Somewhere
you
in
get
the middle.
two people not agreeing.
It doesn't work going and
it-
putting all
yeah.
these things out negative, making EMS look bad as a whole in Georgia,
Right.
and then trying to legislate something that you don't even reach out to the agency. I'll give you a prime example. There was a bill this year, and that I don't think this had anything to do with this group. There was so much going on. But there was a bill that if you have 2 or more cities continuous, and they had X number of calls per year, I don't remember the number, or a number of calls that would require, I think it was 7 ambulances, they could go to the state for a zone for those cities or more. It might have been 3 cities, but I think it was 2. And they were looking at the Dunwoody, Sandy Springs, somewhere around there. So as they're talking, they talked to our lobbyist, and they said, okay, you got there, and they're running X number of trucks here and X number here, and what do you think, what would be the number of trucks needed, that if you need this many trucks, not based on calls, based on trucks?
Yeah, so you got to do call volume.
Well, but they didn't. They put it in there, if I remember correctly, and I'll have to go back and look, but it was, if you have enough calls to justify 7 trucks, 24 hours, you could go to the state and get your own zone carved out for those cities. Well, when I asked, I said, I've been doing this 36 years. What call number are you looking for 7? Because me and Habersham, 7 trucks would be great. Be
Wow,
wonderful.
yeah, here in Newton County
But depending
as well.
on where I am, I may need more or less depending on
and the time of
volumes.
days.
And you know what I
Yeah.
was told? My lobbyist laughed. He goes, they asked me how many trucks I thought needed to be in the legislation, and I just threw out 7. There was 4 in Sandy Springs, and I think 3 in Dunwoody, or vice versa. That shows you've got to look at legislation. Things are thrown in there that has no common
Yeah.
value to it whatsoever.
Year-ish ago, a little over a year ago, 2 years ago, the cancer bill, right? The firefighter cancer bill. And we had a volunteer fire chief on that says this is going to wreck our county because all volunteer, but we're also required. We had the senator or whoever it was, the state representative,
Right.
who had sponsored the bill on. And as he talked about, I went out to different fire stations. I talked to people. I was like, but you didn't come talk to, I mean, not us specifically, but you didn't come talk to us, the volunteers. And here's what's going to happen money-wise. So even with the best of intent and the best effort sometimes, my
Most of the
point
ti-
is things get dropped by
Right,
accident.
and when you add legislation that costs departments money,
Yes.
they're already struggling.
Yeah.
But if my community, now there's some, I'll take Gwinnett and Hall, their communities have said we're going to fund a fire-based EMS, and they're not going to do non-emergency calls. They're going to strictly focus, and the taxpayers have said that's what we want.
Right.
Where I'm at, we run 4, soon to be 5, 24-hour trucks, a paramedic on one of the supervisor vehicles, and then a 10-hour day truck, and then a community paramedicine model. We bring in for a small rural community about 2.2 million a year, or actually almost 2.3 in EMS revenue, which is great. But if we don't run discharges and we don't run transfers, do we tire all our trucks? No, but if I got 3 24-hour trucks available and I got 2 transfers go out, it does happen. Within 10 minutes, 3 911 calls come in. Now, I still have a paramedic supervisor that can still, just like we was talking about DeKalb County, respond. So I get ALS on the scene. But we may have to wait for an adjoining county. The taxpayers of my county, though, if they decide they don't want us to do that, then they're going to have to take the burden of the tax
They
increase.
gotta pay
because
more money.
That's going to be an additional, probably $750,000 a year right there.
And people don't like to talk about money. I mean, that's the thing. There was a recent meeting with a county government board, and the EMS it was stuck in the middle. The people, and some of the quotes from the people in the audience were like, "We'll take a tax raise if that's what it takes to do this." But the county never wants to say, "Let's discuss it openly." And that's just a human thing. I mean,
No, it
humans
is.
don't like
It
to
is.
talk
Nobody in
about
our
money.
area wants to raise
Yeah.
taxes, and I get that. We need to do everything we do as leadership to be very conscious when we're spending taxpayer money, whether we're a private entity or a government or hospital-based. But the money is in, you said it, the financials are extremely important. You know, and I know when it's my mother, I don't care about the money. Do what you got to do to
Right.
take care of her in the county that they live in. But I don't think there's an EMS agency out there, and I'm not saying people have not made mistakes, but when it comes down to money over patient, I hope and I pray that the patient's always going to win out. I've always said, do the right thing for the patient.
Yep.
And we are going to lose. You're going to lose. We don't make a lot of money in EMS. I mean, 2-point-something million is big, and there's others make a lot more.
But you probably
But it
spend
doesn't-
2.15.
Oh no! I
So,
mean, EMS
in
budget.
expendi-
EMS
in-
budget now.
yeah.
With, you know, you take 6 24-hour trucks, a supervisor,
Equipment,
management
supplies,
salaries, and all that stuff. You're
gasoline.
talking about $3 million.
Exactly.
I mean,
So-
brake changes on an ambulance is $1,000.
There is a whole financial component, and part of the EMS, we do the leadership. I didn't even talk about that's our crown jewel. We do the EMS leadership program. 25 EMS leaders have to apply. They got to write an essay, and that funding comes from the Trauma Commission too. That we're on our our 8th class. Actually, they meet next week at Callaway, so I'll be going down Monday to welcome them for their 3rd meeting or their 3rd week. I'll just give you, and I know we've got to go, but I'll give you a quick. One of our first classes we did, there's a lot of directors, and economics and financials of EMS and reimbursement is extremely important. It's very difficult to understand, too. But there was a rural county, I think they ran one 24-hour truck, a day truck, and then it was on call at night. The director came to the leadership course, learned some things about the financials and reimbursement, went back to his county, implemented it, and within 6 months showed an increase. Their first year, they increased their monthly EMS revenue by almost $10,000.
Wow.
$120,000 for a small rural service increase is huge. Their county administrator and actually them reached out to us to thank us after, well, it was a little bit
Wow.
over a year by the time they implemented it.
That's amazing.
Those are the things we're trying to do is help because every dollar is important.
Let me throw one last thing about with lobbyists and support for GEMSA. Based on call volume, we were spitballing this the other day. Based on call volume, studies have come out and said driving while exhausted or tired is worse than driving while drunk. And we all have personal stories of people getting off work, 24, 48-hour shift, ran all night, and died on the way home getting off work. Would GEMSA be interested in supporting or lobbying for changes on mandatory 10 and 12-hour shifts above a certain call volume? So like the really busy services,
We
you
are
have to do
looking,
12s.
and I just said this, I think if we don't do something, as an
Exactly.
industry, somebody's going to do it
So you're
for
talking
us.
about the fatigue. Okay, that's what you're talking about. That's what I thought,
And
but I
it's
want to be
not
clear.
just driving and
Yeah.
accidents, it's medication errors at 3 o'clock in the morning
How
without
your
medic
brain
in the back.
works. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're very concerned about it. Staffing is an issue for all of us.
Yeah.
We don't, and everybody we talked about, you work many different agencies. You know, I don't know who worked for an agency the night before part-time.
Exactly.
And they show up here and they were up all night, and now we've got them working for us. There's no way to police that. Not real. I mean, you
Not
can put a
really, yeah.
rule that you don't work 12 hours, but how do you police that?
Yeah.
You police
But
it
for
when you
services,
catch 'em.
I mean, we were talking to a service in a big city that they'll do 24 calls in 24 hours.
You're
and that's a
exhausted.
standard thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we would definitely support something. Now, again, you got to look at when you do that and you say at X number of calls in a 24-hour period or 12, you've got to go to 8, 10, 12-hour shift, whatever. You're adding a cost to that county, that
Yeah.
hospital, that private service. So, again, unfunded mandates, more or less. Where do you
Yeah.
find the additional? We've got to fix Medicare and Medicaid to pay what it costs to run the calls. We've got to get where they pay for community paramedicine. That's another. You know, everybody talks about paramedics need to have a degree. Some states in Missouri did it. They had to rescind it because they had a huge drop-off. Degrees are important. I'm back in school very late in life. But it's not going to do that medic really any good starting off. Most places are not going to pay
Right.
for that degree.
Right.
And everybody compares it to the nursing industry where they went out and stood their ground. But if I'm a hospital, I can go out and say, okay, we got to pay them more. We're going to have to invest in a day surgery or outpatient surgery or a cancer center or let's become a trauma center or a cardiac center. There's service lines at a hospital I can have generate more revenue.
Right. We don't.
EMS is EMS reimbursement for transports. That's it. So
Yeah.
if we're going to pay them more and you're going to require this, where's the money going to come from?
That's something where we need to get our minds together and find more revenue streams a different way. We got to do something different. Figure out how to get more money.
That's exactly right.
So I know we're running out of time for you, Chief. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having us.
You have anything else, Charles?
I just
No,
want to say,
right
get
on.
people active and members in GEMSA. The more we get, they first told us 10,000, so we needed about half of the licensed providers. Now they're telling us if we can get 5,000, we can kick this off. And we're right about 2,000 now. We've still got a lot of work to do, but the more people that will either sign up, there's so much stuff. The good thing about this, like I said, we're going to be able to offer life insurance, long-term and short-term disability.
That
a
is
very
so
good
important.
possibility that we can offer health insurance. If you go with this company and do your liability insurance, GEMSA will get a little bit, or some of that extra proceeds will go into the retirement fund. There, we don't know yet, but take a rural county that's small, and because they don't have a lot of people in their health insurance, I know some up my ways, I'm told $800 to $1,000 a month for family coverage.
Yeah.
If we
exactly.
have thousands, and we've got a large consortium of EMS organizations in the Southeast, as far as the professional organizations, what if we can offer insurance for a third of that? Then they could buy their life insurance for $300, maybe and I'm just using a number, because the more people you get, the cheaper. That's huge benefits.
Well, and also you have organizations that could participate in that too. That cuts their cost, which means there'd be more money
That's
for
right. So
for maybe salaries or another unit or so. Who knows?
we got a very proactive board. Our executive director works hard. We got a great staff, and I'm excited about where we're heading.
How does somebody sign up if they wanted to?
You can go to our website and sign up there. Of course, if you want to reach out and talk, you can call me. You can call Kim Littleton, our executive director, or Kathy White, who coordinates a lot of the programs for us and works for GEMSA. But the easiest way is just to go online, and it takes, even when I redo mine every year, it takes about 2 minutes to go in there and do it.
Awesome.
All right. Director of EMS Operations, Habersham County, Chad Black, and President of GEMSA. Thank you for
Thank you for
coming
having
around
me.
today.
Yes, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much.